The Out of Bounds Show podcast is presented by the Premium Cigars at Havana Smoke Shop. Visit their 2 locations, I-55 in Jackson and on the Res, for your premium cigar needs. Only at Havana Smoke Shop.
WRKS Pickens Jackson.
It's all coming back
From the Whiskey 61 Lounge inside the BankPlus Studio.
And there it comes again.
Mississippi's #1 sports talk show. The Out of Bounds Show with Bo Bounds. Streaming worldwide live on the Out of Bounds radio app and on your radio. At ESPN 105.9.
What is that?
What is that?
The Zone.
All right, good morning. Welcome in. Out of Bounds, 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. It's National Signing Day. Some of those are coming in both in Starkville and Oxford and around the country. We'll continue to monitor that. Of course, if you have Twitter or Google, you're keeping up with the same thing as we are. 105.9 The Zone, ESPN, WRKS. It'd be a good day for 247 Sports and Rivals and some of those sites. That's for sure. As far as page views and so on. Show is brought to you by the Great Steaks and Bourbon at Kessler Prime in the Renaissance. Visit KesslerPrime.com to make a reservation. We're streaming live on the Out of Bounds radio app. Thanks for making us your SEC football show of choice in the great state of Mississippi. Sports, entertainment. You can hit us up on the Farm Bureau Insurance call-in line, 601-995-1059. Twitter handle at BoBounds is brought to you by RPT and Rick's Pro Trucks, spray-in bed liners, lift kits, tires, and wheels. RPT, ricksprotruck.com. And then we have the Ag Up Equipment Mississippi Ag text line, and that is 601-885-3776. A lot of people are keeping an eye on Trevion Williams out of Crystal Springs and Percy Lewis out of JUCO as far as MSU and Ole Miss. I think you'll see it just as quick as we will, but we'll keep you updated. Will can the sports intern extraordinaire who didn't clean the grill out last week, but we're expecting big things from Will today on National Signing Day. He will be monitoring that on Twitter and the message boards. You know, so I'm looking over this top 40 list of Mississippi prospects, and I do think that some of the kids would have been offered just a few years ago. So it is the transfer portal will impact high school and junior college because Kiffin and Leach want to hold some Scallies back for the transfer portal. I don't know what kind, I can't quantify it exactly what kind of trickle-down effect it'll have. But I think some of these guys would have received scholarships if we didn't have the transfer portal. And whether it's 1 to 2 each school, that's still a big deal. I mean, I don't know which kid, right? Zach Prince, I'm just making something up. Do you think about that guy? He may have an offer from Troy, Tulane, Southern Miss, and La Lafayette. Those are great schools. Great scholarship. But that guy 2 years ago, 5 years ago, may have been offered by Power 5. I mean, think about where Snoop Connor was. He was the 31st, 33rd ranked prospect a couple years ago. I mean, now people are talking about the NFL. The guy's a fantastic SEC football player. So I think when you look at this top 40 list on 247 Sports, I do think some of these guys missed out on Power 5 scholarships because of the transfer portal.
Yeah, and how many schools slow play these lower-end high schoolers to say, like, okay, I'll let you go to Tulane because if you're worth it, if you are what you think you can be, then I can pick you up in a year or 2 years out of the transfer portal, and I can let you almost go to like a minor league system, essentially.
Boy, how many scholarships, if you're going to hold back, dang,
And think how many that is over the course of the 130 Power 5 and then another 100-something G5, right?
Well, think about just in Ole Miss and Mississippi State terms, how many kids that is over 10 years.
So if it's 4 per school per year, right? I mean, you're talking about 80 minimum, so 100 kids over the course of 10 years probably, give or take.
Wow.
That normally would have gotten offers will now have to go JUCO / small school and then may or may not get a chance to go to the big school down the road.
Yeah.
And how many of those kids that would have gotten back-end high school offers, like whether it's 2 signing days or just the 1 signing day and you're a late addition, right? How many of those kids turned into good players down the road because they just needed time to develop and grow and mature? Now you're not going to see that because those kids have to do it at a lower level, may not get that opportunity.
Huh. So you're going to have a handful of kids, give or take, that would have received a scholarship from MSU or Ole Miss or other Power 5. We'll take out the Georgias, the Bamas, and the LSUs because the kids we're referencing would not receive a scholarship from those. Not that they couldn't be, great players later or really good players. But when you look at like MSU, Ole Miss, Georgia Tech, Oklahoma State, South Carolina, Arkansas, Missouri, and I mean, some of those schools that I'm referencing still recruit in the top 20, top 25, top 30, which means you're still signing phenomenal athletes. I mean, that's where we're in a bad spot somewhat, Blake, mentally, because we're bordered by the best college football program in the history of college football. And then on the other side, a program that actually figured it out to our west that didn't figure it out for decades in LSU. And we're all kind of stepping back and going, my gosh. I mean, if they can win a title with Miles and play for another one and win a title with Ogeron, what kind of beast is that really? Because when LSU didn't have their act together in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, you were kind of like, well, ho-hum. They should be great, but they're not. And so I think we're kind of warped as far as when we look at, you're going to sign a ton. I mean, you're going to sign some really, really, really good athletes today. Guys who are big, fast, strong, athletic, all that. They're going to start. Now, I don't know how many. I mean, the question is how many will start. But you're going to sign SEC starters. But we're also debating the whole transfer portal thing and how that impacts, because everybody stood on the chair and wanted it. But now you could see over like a 7 to 10 year period how it could impact high school kids. Because I think there's some guys committed to Southern Miss today. I am confident because I think Will Hall's done a really good job. There are guys committed to Southern Miss today that would have received offers from MSU and Ole Miss in the past.
Correct.
And we know that Southern Miss, when run right, can field phenomenal athletes. Just like, they can be at the Louisiana Lafayette level when they're run well and run the right way, and that's what Will's trying to do. Because La Lafayette / UL now, whatever you want to call them, the Raging Cajuns, boy, Mark Hudspeth and Billy Napier have did a really good job with that program. They're kind of the thing right now, in this 3 or 4 state area as far as G5. We'll see if Southern Miss can get back to that level. Obviously, they're joining the Sun Belt, and they have a guy who gets it in recruiting. I'm looking at the Southern Miss commitment level. Commitment list. And the ULL commitment list. I'm convinced some of these kids get some Power 5. They receive Power 5 scholars if we didn't have the transfer portal. Now, Mullen's the one that took more players from Southern Miss than any coach out of Starkville and Oxford in the last 30 years, 40 years. Mullen took the Benardrick McKinney, Jonathan Banks, Vic Ballard players, and did well for the most part. maybe Richie Brown. There's others. But all right, Blake's telling me I got to get out of here for a second. The Out of Bounds Show is brought to you by the great steaks at Kessler Prime in the Renaissance. Back in a second. More recruiting on the way.
You're listening to the Out of Bounds Show podcast, presented by Independent Roofing Systems. If you want it done right the first time, visit Independent Roofing Systems today.
All right, good morning. Welcome in. The Out of Bounds Show is brought to you by Went McGee, the Mortgage Man, mortgagemanms.com. Get qualified before you get into the market for a home or a condo, because you got about a minute and a half to pick a house. That's the deal right now in the Jackson metro area. And Went McGee will walk you through that. mortgagemanms.com. mortgagemanms.com. Welcome in. Good morning. Blake Mania is with me. I am your host, Bo Bounds. Will, who is our sports intern extraordinaire, he is not going into the transfer portal.
Hey.
It was hit and miss early in the show as to whether we were going to push him into the transfer portal, but he did some really good research in the last hour. Well done. And so he gets to hang around for another day. We don't promise weeks or months here on the Out of Bounds Show. It's day to day, just like the NFL, right? It's day to day.
What have you done for me
college,
lately?
you get a little more, get a little more juice. NFL's like, can you play today? If you can't, you're gone. That's the Out of Bounds Show mantra. Did you like that, Blake?
Thought that was on point. It's put up or shut up time. What have you done for me lately?
There you go.
That's
there you
right.
go. Talking National Signing Day. Cam East is in the house for Ole Miss, and for Mississippi State, Braden Locke is in the house. So offensive lineman from New Orleans for Ole Miss, and quarterback for Mississippi State. And we'll see, what all – they're coming in pretty good here, left and right for the schools. We're debating the transfer portal and how that impacts high school signees. Can Southern Miss make hay in the fact that Mississippi State and Ole Miss would have signed some of the guys that I'm looking at in the top 40? But because of the transfer portal, the new thing is to hold X amount of schollies to see if you can find a couple of guys that can impact your roster immediately, because that's what they're looking for. When you sign a high school kid, a lot of times it's going to take a little while for them to get ready to play in the Southeastern Conference, unless you're decimated with either terrible recruiting or injuries. We do see at Ole Miss and Mississippi State here and there where freshmen are. Look at Will Rogers. He had to play as a true freshman. That's tough. A lot of times, that when Ole Miss and MSU drop a safety in, they can get burned. They can struggle, but you can also do some things to help them. When you have to play the most important position on the field as a true freshman, just a totally different deal. Or when you have to play like a true freshman offensive lineman, right? MSU and Ole Miss have had to do that at times, from missing in recruiting, or you just have you have a couple of injuries go the wrong way, and then you're throwing a guy. Sean Rawlings did a great job at Ole Miss as a true freshman. You see that, and you're like, wow. But a lot of the times when you throw even Bama's had this happen. They've had to throw a true freshman in. The guy's gotten abused, which, we don't really think about that often, right? We think everybody that Bama drops in just dominates. And that's just not the case. The Out of Bounds Show is brought to you by Superior Foundation for all your foundation repairs. Superior.ms. Todd Sanders, Trey Pace, Superior Foundation for all your foundation repairs. They'll come out, they'll assess the situation. They're local. They do a great job. Superior Foundation for all your foundation repairs. Blake's got, Will and Blake have some numbers for us. So right now, as far as the transfer portal, there's over 1,500 players in the portal. And around 1,000 of those played. Doesn't mean they started. Doesn't mean they played, over 50% of the snaps. About a third of them are walk-ons or never saw the field. And 60% unclaimed players. Something to think about. And approximately 600 are from Power 5 schools. And 400 are from G5 schools, which means about a third of them are from D3 or NAIA. So you can just kind of sweep that out. So I think sometimes we get caught up, Blake, in the overall number. And
it's misleading.
It's very misleading. And it's easy to kind of be that cranky guy. Oh, my gosh, there's 1,500-plus players in the portal. Everything's going to hell.
Yeah.
It's not.
It's like saying, well, there's 3 million women in New York, so I got a good chance of finding a date. Well, let's take out all the ones that are underage and overage and the ones that are married, and all of a sudden that number goes down way lower real quick.
That's a good point. Actually, that's a good point. Only a third of the players in the transfer portal step up a level. To me, that really jumps out at me. Only a third of the players in the transfer portal step up a level. And 30% of them don't get a new team. Now, again, some of this is skewed because a third of them are walk-ons / a third of them are from D3 or NAIA. So it's just something to think about as you really think about, I think where Blake and I are trying to drill down for Ole Miss and MSU is, what do you have realistically in the portal? Like, how many D1 players do you have, or P5 players do you have? And so, and Bama and Georgia, they're going to get who they want. And what I see from them a lot of times is when they need like an offensive lineman. I mean, every now and then they'll get a skill player. Every now and then they'll get a quarterback. I get that. They're going to get the cream of the crop. I mean, they're going to get the creme de la creme. They'll get to pick. All right, so, oh, wow, there's an offensive lineman from Oklahoma State, and he started the last 2 years. And because of some things that happened, we had a guy go early to the NFL draft. We had a guy get hurt. And then we had a guy that wasn't as good as we thought he was going to be. We'll take that guy. We'll take Jevin Walker from OK State. So they'll get that. But to me, Blake, they're not even going to come close to living in that. Because they don't have to. Do you agree with that, Blake?
Yeah, 100%.
Georgia, Bama, LSU?
Because you're operating on a different level. Again, it goes back to in anything in life. We like to pretend like the battlefield is just this flat table and we're all starting at one edge, but that's not how it works. Some people have advantages, some don't. Some people have to work harder than others, some don't. It's just the way it is. And so, yeah, when you're in Alabama, Ohio State, Oklahoma, that type of level school, you are going to have a much easier time swaying someone or manipulating those numbers to your advantage because you have the first pick. It's just the way it works. I also
think that you do have to have an in-house guy dedicated to this, though. Running the numbers.
Yeah, it's a new wave of recruiting. You have high school recruiting coordinators, you got to have a new transfer portal coordinator.
Absolutely, because if you can find a starter or two, like Chance Campbell and Mekhi Polk, man, that's huge. I mean, that's big. Out of bounds, 105.9 The Zone, ESPN, driven by the Ram trucks, Jeep Grand Cherokees, at Mac Hike in Flowood. Visit MacHikeFlowood.com. All right, look, Mac Hike in Flowood, they've got plenty of vehicles. They're loaded up with SUVs and trucks if you're looking for one. MacHikeFlowood.com. The best selection of SUVs and trucks in Mississippi. MacHikeFlowood.com. SEC Insider Hit coming up next. You can order award-winning Jonesy Q rubs and sauces at jonesyq.com. Use promo code OOBSHOW if you order $20 or more and receive free shipping. That's jonesyq.com. Promo code OOBSHOW.
Press the button, my friend.
The Out of Bounds Show is live from the Whiskey 61 Lounge in the BankPlus Studio.
Check it out.
All right, good morning. Welcome in to the Out of Bounds Show, 105.9 The Zone, ESPN, WRKS, as I try to lose my voice as we go from 35-degree weather to 75-degree weather. It's just part of the deal, right? We've got a special guest in the BankPlus Studio. We want to say good morning, welcome into you. We're glad to have Dr. Graham Calvert, spine specialist with Mississippi Sports Medicine and Orthopedic Center. Of course, you can go to MississippiSportsMedicine.com. Graham, good morning. How are you? Welcome back into the studio.
Thanks, Bo. Appreciate you having me.
Let's get into something real serious before we talk about men's health. Deer hunting. How's it gone the last 30 days, 60 days, depending on if you're going bow or gun?
Well, the weather hadn't really helped us. You know, it's kind of like you said, it's been cold and then it gets really hot, but we've had a good early season hunt. You know, I've got a place up in North Mississippi around Kilmichael.
Nice.
And on the Big Black River, and they have pretty good genetics up there. And my son got his first deer actually about 2 weeks ago. So that was exciting.
That's awesome. And you just got back from Disney World.
I did. Took my family there. I told you earlier I'm recovering both financially and physically. So we had a good time, though.
Yeah,
great.
Italy and Epcot, you got to hit it. Great place. They've actually got a super cool restaurant and bar. And then the new Star Wars stuff is
the Star Wars stuff is
super
really cool.
Fun and Hollywood.
My kids love that.
Glad y'all got to experience that. All right, you're younger than me, but I'm in my 40s. And as we get older, I don't think we talk about men's health enough. And as a spine specialist, you know, the core is so important. And I think it's easy to overlook, too.
Right.
So when we talk about core, strengthening the core as we get older, for Dr. Graham Calvert, a spine specialist, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Well, physical fitness. I mean, exercises and kind of the mentality to stay moving. You know, I see, you know, I do spine surgery for the clinic, and I'll be honest with you, you know, of all the people I see in a given week, only about 5% of them actually need a surgery. The other 95% really just need some sort of lifestyle change. They need to start moving. They need better flexibility. They need better core strength. You know, I think, you know, we all like Hemingway, right, as men. You know, Hemingway, I think one of his premises was things happen gradually and then they happen suddenly. So, you know, we kind of gradually lose our core strength. We gradually lose an ability to move. And the next thing, suddenly you wake up and you can't go play ball with your kids. You can't go exercise. You can't go run because your back hurts too bad. And, you know, I have guys come into my clinic and like, hey, you got to fix me. And it's like, look, you don't need a fix. You just really need to re-explore movement again. You need to get your flexibility and your core strength back. And, you know, that's one of the things I feel like I do a lot of preaching throughout the week on that sort of a thing.
Take better care of yourself.
That's right. That's right. And, you know, I'm more interested in a guy who shows up to my clinic who's in his 80s and like he's just still has a vital life. He's still very active because I'm interviewing those guys. I want to figure out, like, I want to be like you. How do I get to my 80s and I can still move and be active and have your mind? Those guys are fascinating to me. And one of the things just over the years, seeing people like that is they all are not afraid to explore new movements. They're not afraid to do something different, to maybe start martial arts or start a HIIT class or start swinging a kettlebell. I'm a huge fan of swinging a kettlebell.
Nice.
But they're all maintaining their core strength. They're all maintaining their weight. They're eating right, and they're just moving. Right. You know, we just kind of stop moving. It's kind of like some people call it soft suburban dad syndrome.
Oh, I love that.
You like that? So I mean,
Blake, we're using that.
You know, we get out of college, we get married, and we just don't want to hold on to some of the things that make us a man and give us the energy to get out and move.
Right.
And we just get soft. And
that's
you know,
good.
You got to fight that urge.
Absolutely.
And you got to do stuff, you know. But I think you need a kettlebell sitting over here in this corner.
I like where you're going. Dr. Graham Calvert. We'll call it the Dr. Graham Calvert kettlebell. All right. So
get you one.
You've stayed in shape. You work out. How many days? And you got 4 kids. You're obviously a spine surgeon. How many days a week do you work out?
I mean, I try to get to the gym about at least 4 days a week.
That's strong.
And it's one of those things. I remember early in my practice, I thought I was too busy to work out. I was like, you know, I have kids, and you know, if anybody has kids, they have a million activities, right? And they're every sport is year round, you know,
right?
So, but the thing is, you have to build in some time for yourself, and it doesn't take. We're talking 45 minutes to an hour.
Sure,
you know. I like going to a workout class where I show up and this written on the board what I'm going to do, and we do it, and I'm out of there, and I'm back to being a dad and being with my family and trying to support them in their efforts. So
I was told this by your crew at the Madison Healthplex, Dr. Graham Calvert on the Out of Bounds show, that it's okay as we get older to really work with light weights too. That's a great way. I mean, I've gotten to the point where I'm doing a lot of light weights, but you know, it's fun to do it for 12 to 15 minutes at a time and then go do some cardio or whatnot. What are your thoughts there?
Oh, I think that's huge. I mean, the biggest thing is you want to allow a workout to come naturally. You know, you always want to go light and build up form before you move on to load and volume. So, you know, let things come naturally. A lot of us as guys, we want to jump into a new exercise and we want to master it. And if it's Olympic lift, we want to like max out on a deadlift. And I'll tell you what, I see a lot of people in my clinic who are trying to like do too much on a deadlift, and they strain their back. And I think you can be using great form on a deadlift and still strain your back. So, you know, let it come naturally would be my advice there. Start off lightweight and just rebuild that core, and it takes time.
Out of Bounds, ESPN 105.9 The Zone. We have Dr. Graham Calvert joining us on the Out of Bounds show, spine specialist with Mississippi Sports Medicine and Orthopedic Center. So basically on a weekly basis, what you see more than anything that your patients could kind of avoid seeing you is just staying active all the way, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. And so on, doing something like you said, whether it's yoga, walking, elliptical, weights.
Right. It could be anything. Just explore something new. I mean, I'm big into swimming, HIIT training, these boot camps, various boot camps that different gyms offer. You know, those are ways to get plugged in. For women, you know, I really like Pilates or Reformer. I really like yoga. I like CrossFit. You know, you got to find something that fits you, right? And so, but the thing is, you got to do it, and it's okay to do something and then move on and do something different. You know, I see a lot of guys, and they're just afraid to do something different. They're afraid to get out of their routine, and I think, you know, getting out of your routine and exploring new movements is huge.
I got to ask you a question. This may sound ridiculous. I've heard about that if you just slightly suck in your stomach when you're walking or jogging, that is good for your core and can actually make a difference compounded over time. Is there something to that?
For sure. You're just engaging your core. Okay. So lots of times people don't think, I see a lot of walkers and runners actually in my office who have back pain because they're so good at walking and running in that system movement that they've mastered that they're not doing a whole lot for their core. So what you're talking about is engaging your core. And I'm always encouraging people who just walk and just run. That's really good for your heart. It's really good for you can live a long time doing that, right? But you can still have a lot of back pain and a lot of stiffness if you're just walking and running. So it's really good to incorporate another movement in with running or walking, such as, you know, getting on the ground and doing some bridging exercises, some planking exercises, and some sit-ups. So build about 30 minutes twice a week of that into your running routine, and I think you'll have your back covered.
Dr. Graham Calvert on the Out of Bounds show, Mississippi Sports Medicine and Orthopedic Center. All right, we're going to switch gears here a little bit with you. What was your toughest class in medical school?
You know, I went to Mississippi State. I majored in biological engineering and, you know, got a great education from Mississippi State. Can't say enough good things about it, you know, academically. And really kind of was, I got into medical school because of biological engineering, and really felt like it gave me a good background to orthopedic surgery, because orthopedics is very physics driven. We're all about balance and rebuilding joints and bones, and in my case, rebuilding balance to the spine. And so I'd say my hardest class was probably a class called fluid dynamics. And on the final exam, they said, you've got a cooler of beer, and inside of that cooler is a certain temperature, and the outside temperature is this. And they gave you a coefficient for determining how the wall thickness and determining how much resistance there was to fluid change, air change across that. And they're like, how long is it going to take that beer to get warm and hit a certain temperature? Good. And I remember just being blown away. That was the whole final exam.
Wow.
And so it required you to go through and do all these different calculations in terms of, measuring the ability to keep that beer cold.
And your biological engineering degree, I'm sure, helped, even though you were several years into medical.
Right. No. That was actually that was my senior year at Mississippi State. That was in a class called fluid dynamics, which is a upper level engineering class. Okay. So that was probably my hardest class.
All right.
I'm embarrassed to tell you the grade I ended up in that class.
It had to be good. I mean, I've looked at your resume several times, your bio. All right. What about, what was your aha moment in either residency or when you were specializing?
I think my aha moment actually came when I was in college. I wasn't sure if I wanted to go to med school or not. My dad is a very missions-based guy. He's taken a medical mission trip down to the Andes Mountain of Peru, and he's done it for over 15 years. And he takes a group of medical professionals every single year. And I went with my dad, and really early in college, and by that experience, decided I definitely wanted to go into medicine, and I wanted to help people. Biological engineering, I picked that major because it gave me a lot of different options. I didn't know if I wanted to go to law school or just be an engineer or go into business school or go to medical school. But I would say my aha moment was my father taking me on a medical mission trip and kind of letting me see that the world's different from America. And there's a lot of people out there who need help and who need a skill set, and medicine is kind of the universal language.
That's cool. All right, let's wrap it up with this. Dr. Graham Calvert, spine specialist, Mississippi Sports Medicine and Orthopedic Center. It's National Alabama Day, Blake Scott told me. And I know you love Orange Beach, Dr. Graham Calvert. Right. And I know you love to fish. So what is your favorite, and I've seen some really cool pictures. Tell me what your favorite fishing trip or what to catch is down off of Orange Beach, Gulf Shores area.
Well, Orange Beach, because of the boat traffic, it's not a great fishery, but I enjoy just getting out with my kids, and the redfish will kind of school up into the bay come fall, and also the crowds kind of clear out. So one of my favorite times is to go down there and kind of get off in some of those deep channels and catch some of those redfish that are slipping through there with my kids.
And then you got to go to Doc's and hammer a shrimp po' boy or some gumbo or the keg and get a cheeseburger. Dr. Graham Calvert, great to see you, buddy.
Hey, thank you for having us. Big fan of the show. Appreciate you supporting us.
Well, we love the partnership, and y'all are doing a great job. Dr. Graham Calvert, spine specialist with Mississippi Sports Medicine and Orthopedic Center. Real quick, 20 seconds. How much do you love the new surgery center and clinic on Flowood now that you've been in it a couple of years?
It's great. It's definitely state of the art. I'd rather operate there than anywhere just because the equipment and everything is just so up to date. And by the way, we've got an 8-bed surgery center. We're adding on 4 rooms to the back of that.
Really?
So we're by next year, this time we'll have 4 more rooms. It'll go from an 8-bed to a 12-bed surgery center. So we're excited about that. We're growing. We're here for all your listeners out there, all of your orthopedic needs. We have urgent care. So come see us at Mississippi Sports Medicine.
New surgery center and clinic, Mississippi Sports Medicine and Orthopedic Center, Lakeland Drive, Flowood. Back, you're listening to Out of Bounds. ESPN 105.9, The Zone. All right, we appreciate Dr. Graham Calvert joining us on the Out of Bounds show, brought to you by MississippiSportsMedicine.com. Want to say good morning, welcome in to you. Hope you're doing well on National Signing Day, college football, baby, Power 5, G5, the Dogs, the Rebs, Southern Miss, Will Hall and Southern Miss definitely, trying to get better. Will and his team focused on upgrading the roster quickly. Tough year for them. They walked into a difficult situation, And, when you lose 4 quarterbacks and all that kind of stuff, it's not usually going to line up the right way. But something that we've been talking about is Southern Miss has a great opportunity to take advantage of Mississippi State and Ole Miss and Arkansas, Georgia Tech type programs, Baylor, I guess, holding scholarships for the transfer portal. So, can you find in Mississippi, you have this. I mean, you have underdeveloped, super raw athletes that eventually, a lot of times blow up on campus. And that's going all the way back to, the Jerry Rice, Walter Payton. But Southern Miss did a great job of that 70s, 80s, and 90s, where Ole Miss and Mississippi State did not, of really running the roads, right? And I just think there was more of a chip on the shoulder for Southern Miss assistant coaches and staff, and just more of a lackadaisical, or we've already made it, or we think we're something that we're not, from some of the other staffs at that time in the state of Mississippi. And Southern Miss, produced a ridiculous amount of NFL players in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Dan Mullen was the guy who really decided to, all right, he looked at it and said, a lot of these kids didn't go to State and Ole Miss the last 40 years, but became really good football players. And so he tapped into that. While we got caught up in all of Hugh Freeze's national recruiting, and Hugh did a good job there, Dan did a really good job finding Benardrick McKinney, Vic Ballard, and Jonathan Banks, and Gabe Jackson, type players. So the question here, as we run the numbers and as Leach and Kiffin hold back scholarships for transfer portal kids, which means I'm looking at this list, some of these guys would have received offers. To Ole Miss or Mississippi State or another Power 5 school. But with the transfer portal, now those teams outside of the top, I mean, Blake, I'm kind of trying to land this thing, but I'm thinking teams that don't recruit in the top 10 are going to hold some spots, some scholarships for guys in the transfer portal.
Yeah, I think it's a fluid transitional thing too, because it's all going to be about the year and what you have and who you're recruiting high school wise and what positions you're struggling with. If the state of Mississippi has a lack of linemen coming up in next year's class, so to speak, and I'm just throwing that out, I don't know that, but then that means maybe you're preemptively looking ahead at transfer linemen, right? And you're kind of structuring how you recruit based on what your options and opportunities are.
Right. That's right. And as I look at the kids in the 20s and 30s on 247 Sports, I just think whether it's 1, 2, 3, maybe up to 4 or 5 could have received offers before. Man, timing's everything, isn't it? I mean, before we got into this transfer portal, some of these guys would have been offered SEC scholarships. So, and we've given you some of the numbers. They're incredible. Over 1,500 players in the portal. 1,000 of them played. Whether that was like Blake, whether it was 20 snaps or 50%. A third are walk-ons or never saw the field. Make sure you keep that in mind before you go crazy over the transfer portal number, right? Kind of like looking at cases of COVID. 60% unclaimed players not committed to a new school. Approximately 600 from Power 5, 400 from G5, and a third from D3 or NAIA. So that D3 NAIA / walk-on is a large percentage of how many are in the transfer portal. Only a third of the transfer. This is what jumps out at me. Only a third of the players in the transfer portal step up a level. Do you think that number will hold? You know, like 3 years from now, 6 years from now, that'll kind of be the number? Or do you see that?
Well, yeah, because you have to remember that only 1,000 of these players are probably eligible to do that. Like, how many NAIA D3, D2 kids are making that jump up? Which right now, about a third of the
1%,
a third of the group, a third of those 1,500 odd players are below G5, which is D2, right. D3 NAIA, right? And so that means you really only, if for our references, you're really only working with a crowd of about 1,000, not 1,500, right? Because how many of those lower G5, how many people below G5 can jump up to P5? None, probably.
Out of Bounds, 105.9 The Zone, ESPN, is brought to you by Edwin Watts Golf Shop on County Line Road. Edwin Watts Golf Shop on County Line Road. You looking for a driver for Christmas, a putter, maybe a set of irons? They've got golf balls, the golf gear, golf equipment. Edwin Watts Golf Shop on County Line Road before you go to Live Oaks Golf Club. Edwin Watts Golf Shop on County Line Road. The Ag Up equipment, Mississippi Ag text line is 601-885-3776. 885-3776. Will be interesting to see how many how many scholarships Ole Miss and Mississippi State do hold back at the very end of the day for this signing period, which is the main signing period, but also for the February 3rd signing period as you really get into the hunt. You would love for your transfer to start in January. I'm sorry, your player or players from the transfer portal to enroll in January and go through spring. If not, trying to grab a player or two or however many that is in the spring, get them on campus June 1. They get to live for 60 days, and then, of course, they start practice early August and get ready for the 2022 football season. Blake's live in the BankPlus Studio. I'm your host, Bo Bounds. Hope you're doing well. Ole Miss and Mississippi State continuing to add signees here as we roll throughout the day. And we'll see if there's a surprise. You know, I think that's what everybody's waiting on. Will there be one? Who held? Or the guys that had not made a commitment, where will they go? Stone Blanton signed with South Carolina, so that is a done deal. Stone Blanton from MRA will go to South Carolina and join Shane Beamer. Somebody made a great point on the text line. You know, Kirby Smart is going to promote Will Muschamp.
Oh, no. Is he really?
Well, I mean, you'd have to believe that without a doubt. I mean, I almost feel like it's like 99%.
It makes sense. It's easy.
You know,
easy.
Will Muschamp, they played together at Georgia. They're good friends. And Will Muschamp is now on the staff as a defensive analyst. And so you would think that Will Muschamp's the next defensive coordinator at Georgia. And how about Nick Saban and Bryce Young taking Matt Luke's national championship away from him? Are they going to do that? It sure looked like for a while there that offensive line coach, for the University of Georgia, it looked like, you know, Matt Luke was going to get a big ring. We'll see if they can, I guess, now upset Bama in the college football playoff. More on the way. Good morning. Welcome in.